Hey everyone, AJ here. Welcome to this episode of Film Franchise Fortnights on the Cult Pop Podcast. Before we get underway, I just wanted to let you guys know about a few things that are happening. Number one is that we have a new video out. It's a video essay on a theory that I call parallel characters, and it talks about Star Wars, talks about Fargo, and it talks about Tiny Toon Adventures, which, if you don't remember, was a really cool cartoon from the 90s that I really enjoy. And so you can check that out on YouTube and Facebook, both under Cult Popture on both of those platforms. Please check it out and show it to people and your friends and tell me what you think of it. Tell us what you think of it. Because it took a lot of work, and I'd really, really like to know what people think of it, and if they are liking the video essays we've been putting out, and if it's something people want to see more of, that sort of thing. Another thing I want to bring up is that next week, our episode of the Cult Popture podcast is going to be about the best song of all time, of the last 10 years. No, just of ever. Well, so I guess, yeah, of all time. But we're not exactly sure how we're going to do it yet, but we wanted to, I guess, each have a song or two that we bring to the table that we say we think is the best song. And we thought we'd like to involve what listeners we do have in that as well. So if you want us to know what you think is the best song, record yourself pitching in, say, under 90 seconds what you think is the best song of all time, and send it to us on our Facebook page. There'll be you can either send it in a private message, or you can comment it on the post that will be up there shortly about this podcast we're doing. Enough of that, enough of me talking. Now we're going to go to the show, and you're going to hear us talk about the Twilight Saga. Sorry, man. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. Should I stop recording? Do you want to? Should we hug it out? Should we have a talk? Should we have a meeting, a team meeting?
No. Good afternoon.
Oh, that's assuming.
And welcome to Film Franchise Fortnights on the Cult Popture Podcast.
Afternoon's got to be the least likely time someone listens to a podcast.
Why?
Because when I listen to a podcast, it's either in the morning on my way to work, or on my way home in the evening, or very late evening when I'm going to sleep. I'll chuck one on.
Night, even. Very, very late evening.
But good afternoon, nonetheless.
Yeah. Although, kind of, often you listen to it in that sort of, when it's almost evening and the light's kind of just sort of disappearing.
Dusk? You're talking about Dusk.
I'm talking about Twilight, AJ.
Oh my gosh! No! So, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 6 films. Medea, 8, 10 films?
Is that 8 films?
Freddy vs. Jason, 20 films. The Twilight Saga, 1,000 films. My goodness. This felt like I was living forever. This felt like I was an immortal child. This felt like, that's about it.
Yeah, well...
my name's AJ, by the way.
And I'm Richard.
This is a podcast where we watch a different film franchise every fortnight. Ergo, Film Franchise Fortnights. I've never used ergo before.
And you didn't use it correctly.
How are you supposed to use it?
How are you supposed to use it?
How are you supposed to use ergo?
Anyway, moving on.
Oh, you don't even know.
So, we're discussing the Twilight Saga. And I can call it Saga, because that's what they want to be called.
Yep, and if you're looking at, which you're not, but if you're looking at our past episodes, and you're like, why have you called some a series and some a saga?
Yeah, what's your ruling for
So the ruling
saga?
is...
Trilogy's obviously 3 films.
Yep, so 2 films, you put both of them in the title. So Shanghai Noon and Shanghai Nights. Unless it gets...
Shanghai Noon and Shanghai Nights.
Unless it gets too long, and then I go Sisterhood of the Travelling Pants 1 and 2. Yeah. Then for 3 it's a trilogy, unless it's unfinished, and then it's series.
Right.
4 or more.
Like, have we done one like that?
Ghostbusters isn't a trilogy.
Yeah.
and that's actually movies. If they're unrelated, like different continuities, different canons, they're movies. So
when do they become films?
They don't.
Because what about like the Spider-Man films?
No, they were called the Spider-Man movies.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, if it's 4 or more, it's a series, unless specifically stated by the creating party what the series should be referred to. As such, we have the Twilight Saga.
The Twilight Saga. So the Twilight Saga, as you said, consists of
1,000
films. But they're kind of broken up into, I'd say, 5 main ones.
5. Yeah, there's 5 films. Movies.
So there's the Twilight Saga Twilight, released in 2008, directed by Catherine Hardwicke. The Twilight Saga New Moon.
Oh, I thought it was called Twiharder.
Surprised you get that reference, AJ.
Twiharder.
Surprised you...
Twihard with a vengeance. Anyway, New Moon.
New Moon. The Twilight Saga New Moon, directed by Chris Weitz in 2009. The Twilight Saga Eclipse, directed by David Slade, 2010. The Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Part 1, 2011, directed by Bill Condon. And the Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Part 2, released in 2012, also directed by Bill Condon. They were filmed back to back. They star, of course, Billy Burke as Charlie Swan.
Yep. Okay, so the Twilight Saga, based on books as well.
Yes, the book's by Stephanie Meyer.
Look, you know what these are, guys. Like, I feel like who's listening to this who doesn't know what Twilight? This is one of the tent poles in the world of franchises.
Yeah.
This is next to Star Wars, Back to the Future in terms of like ones I
quality.
think. Yeah. No, not quality, but ones that, as the gatekeepers of what is a franchise that we are, I guess, self-appointed, we should have watched this one by now. Or at least, well, not by now, but it's good we've watched it. My point is, it's an important franchise to talk about. If you're talking about franchise.
Because you say everyone knows the plot kind of thing, but do you want to sort of give a brief summation of the plots?
Sure.
Because I, for one, I'd seen them all before, but I was confused on some things about what happens in which film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so the first film, Twilight, is about a girl named Bella Swan who moves to a place called Forks to live with her dad. And Forks is this real foggy, rainy town. It's a real small population.
It's a real town as well.
Oh, okay. I wonder what they think of this.
There's a documentary called Twilight and Forks, which is about how the town reacted to it and how...
Guess I'm going to commit myself to watching that because I'm a slave to these movies. In Forks, she meets a vampire named Edward Cullen, and they fall in love, and it's very romantic, and he has a family, and then she's sort of... Well, he has a family separate from her. He has like brothers and sisters who are also vampires.
What?
What do you watch?
Say that?
Oh, you watched Interview with a Vampire.
You haven't said that he's a vampire yet.
Yeah, I did.
Well, I wasn't listening.
And basically she's opened up to the world of the supernatural. Basically nothing really happens for the first 3 quarters, and then an evil vampire tries to kill her because Edward and his family are good vampires. They only eat animal blood.
Yeah.
Then New Moon. New Moon, Edward's brother loses control briefly and tries to kill Bella because her blood smells real good.
It does.
And so Edward decides to break up with her to keep her safe. And they move away, and Bella's distraught. And in her time of need, she turns to another friend named Jacob Black, who's a Native American character, and it turns out he's a werewolf. What? And so they sort of have a will they, won't they, as Edward's gone, and then she finds out Edward is in trouble and goes to save him, and they get back together, and Jacob's real myth.
I heard about all that.
Yeah. The Twilight Saga Eclipse is sort of the peak of the love triangle storyline, where a Italian vampire mob called the Volturi... no, wait, that's not this one. They're not in... Oh, no, they are. So, in New Moon, there's there's these vampires called the Volturi who are like the Vatican of vampires. But there's also a vampire named Victoria who's going around making new vampires who are uncontrollable and very strong.
Well, Victoria's the sister of the guy that Edward killed in the first one who was trying to kill Bella.
Yeah.
And so she wants vengeance.
And so while they have to prepare for all these newborn vampires coming along, Bella also has to deal with, who do I choose? The vampire or the werewolf?
Yeah.
A question that has plagued women since the dawn of time. Not a lot else happens in that. Oh, they decide to get
They have a
married.
big war and shit, and they decide to get married.
Oh, they decide to get married in New Moon. Anyway, there's a big war. Probably the least definable of all the Twilight movies.
Yeah,
Eclipse.
it's if you'd asked me before this week what happened in Eclipse, I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Yeah. And in Breaking Dawn, parts 1 and 2... Oh, I'll go part 1 first.
They get married.
They get married, and Jacob's very mad because he finds out that they plan to have sex before Edward turns it into a vampire. Which,
He's like, no, you'll kill her!
yeah.
Imagine if everyone reacted like that.
I did react
What?
like that. Whenever I found out that someone was having sex. You'll
No,
kill
no.
her! So they go on their honeymoon, and they have sex, and
And boy, howdy.
Bella gets pregnant with a
What?
vampire baby, which they didn't think was possible. And then she basically dies giving birth.
Yeah.
But they bite her, and at the last second she turns into a vampire, saving her life. And then Jacob, who was ready to kill this monstrosity that is a half human, half vampire baby, imprints on the baby, which is a werewolf term, meaning it's not exactly like falling in love, because that'd be weird. It's more like...
But that is what it is.
You see someone and your entire existence becomes about protecting them.
Yeah. And then when they're old enough,
Maybe...
fucking them.
Part 2, their baby is born and she's growing at a rapid rate, and one of the vampires who's not in the Cullen family sees the baby from afar and thinks that they've turned a child into a vampire. So she goes and alerts the Volturi, and the Volturi set out to kill them, to go and kill them, and to try and stop this, the Cullens recruit all these other vampires across the world to...
But yeah, so the Volturi are mad because it's like against vampire law to turn a child because they're forever stuck at that age but are never able to learn the consequences of their actions, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so they think that it's an immortal child, but it's actually growing up, and then that's never happened before. But I feel like impregnating a human being is just as bad, if not worse.
There's a lot of things in these movies that like people seem to... Like, I would say turning her into a vampire is worse than marrying her. And Jacob gets mad at them in the wrong order. Like, first he's like, I can't believe you're going to turn her into a vampire. And then he's like, you're getting married? It's like, what did you think was going to happen? They've already talked about loving each other forever. Like, and furthermore, Bella has a big sort of crisis about, should I marry him? And it's like, what do you mean?
You're like begging him to turn you into a vampire so you can live literally forever.
Yeah.
With him.
But marriage is like the dun dun dun. These movies they're a delight.
Okay.
So at the end of the series, at the end of the last movie, the Volturi turn up, and
you have to talk about this.
So basically, in the book, they pretty much explain it's real shit. It's a real shit ending to a book because
to a book like franchise.
Yeah. You have this big battle that's going to happen, and then they basically explain to the Volturi that if they fight,
you'll lose.
Everyone's going to die. Everyone, and they're like, okay, we'll leave. And it's just nothing. Nothing happens. In the movie, you actually see the fight, and a lot of people die, but then it turns out it's all just a dream because Alice, who's Edward's sister, can project the future and show people the future. Or no, she can read the future, and the leader of the Volturi can read people's thoughts.
Yeah. So she's seeing the future, and then he's seeing what she sees, which is him dying.
Yeah.
And so you see this awesome fight scene.
Yeah.
And then they reveal it never happened.
It's awful. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen in a movie. We'll get to that a bit later, I think. But and then they leave, and everyone sort of lives happily ever after.
Yeah, we see a little bit of the future.
Yeah, that's true. And so basically, this is a series about a girl trying to choose whether she should fuck a dog or fuck a dead person. And it's
Choosing
only,
between bestiality
only
and
saved, only saved by the fact that the werewolf ends up wanting to fuck a baby. So for those counting at home, there's necrophilia, bestiality, and pedophilia. The only thing they're missing is incest, but Stephanie Meyer's still writing.
They're all because they're all brothers and they're all considered brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
In the Cullen family, and half of them are fucking.
Yeah, but they're not actually related.
Yeah, but it's implied.
No, it's not. What? No, they're different people. Like,
but they talk about they talk about like being one big family, and I'd say there could be an argument made for incest.
Right. Okay, sure. Incest is definitely brought up.
Yeah.
So it's basically a series about all the taboos, all the sexual taboos, and people ate this shit up, man. Before we go any further, can I just illustrate what Twilight meant to me?
Yeah.
Growing up. So Twilight, the book, came out. Well, I became aware of it when I was, I think, 15 or 16.
Right.
All the girls loved it. It was a craze. People called it Twihards. Was it Twihards? Or was there a Twilight? I don't know. It was basically Justin Bieber, like Bieber Fever, but with books, right? And so I read them. I read the books, and because I was an anti-disestablishment kid, I was like, yeah, these books are great. Like, all the boys hated them. They were all, these books are shit. They're so romantic and soppy. And I read them, and I read the first one. I was like, oh my gosh, I love Edward. And then I read all of them, and like, I used to deny my feelings about properties a lot. Like, I used to be like, oh, Shrek 3 is the best Shrek, that sort of thing.
Just to be different.
Yeah, so I'd be like, not to be different, because I wanted them to be, I think. So with Twilight, I was like, these books are great, they get better as they go along, all this stuff. And then, as I grew up and sort of had to start taking, like, movies kind of became... Or being critical of movies became almost a part of my career. It became a part of like my study and like what I was doing with my life. And as the movies came out, I was giving them 4 or 5 stars because I was tied to this idea that I loved the books. But something happened between Breaking Dawn Part 1 and Breaking Dawn Part 2 where I just completely got over them. And then I went to Breaking Dawn Part 2 with like the perfect crowd and just hated it. And so now, like, Twilight to me, watching these movies has affected me in a way that I wasn't ready for, because it's like this nostalgic ride through, like, what I used to find good content. It's like, it was awful watching these. It made me feel sick, because I was like, I can't believe, like, this used to be the movie of my generation for, like, a year. Yeah. Everyone was talking about this movie. And at the same time... There's gold in them there hills.
Oh, yeah.
These movies...
are great.
They are full of, like, spectacular ideas.
Yeah, well, like... it's so complicated because... I loved watching them in so many ways. Should we talk about how we rank them?
Okay, this is impossible for me.
Right.
Have you got the Rotten Tomato scores?
Yeah.
Be very interested to hear them, because after watching these, here's what I've decided. The first movie is the worst made one. It's awful.
Definitely, yeah.
It's terribly directed. It's terribly acted.
Take that, Catherine Hardwicke.
It's cheesy. It's awful. And then the other ones, they sort of steadily get better made. But by the second one, you're sick of all the characters. So it's like
not all the characters.
No, okay. Well, yeah, okay. You're sick of the main. You're sick of the main. Conflict. You're sick of the main characters, and so it's like you're watching someone come along and made a better movie than the first one, but you hate everyone in it, almost everyone in it, and so you don't want to watch it anymore. So I can't rank them, because part of me wants to say the first one's the best one, but then it's so bad, and then like New Moon is real, has some real well made bits in it, but like you get so bored and you're just like, these characters are so trite, and it's so weird. Like, okay, so the first...
Yeah, actually don't know if I can rank them now.
Yeah.
Because, like we talked about it a lot watching them, is that like the first one's kind of the only... And I can listen to an argument for the second one, but like, it's mainly Breaking Dawn are like, these aren't fun places to see the characters.
Yeah.
Like, seeing them fall in love is like a cool story. Introducing a love triangle is a cool idea. Like, to remove from Twilight, if I just sort of said,
of course.
oh yeah, like a girl falls in love with someone, finds out they're a vampire, it's the struggle. You're like, okay, cool, whatever. That makes sense. And then it's like, oh, now there's a werewolf and she doesn't know which one she loves. Cool. Third one, both of the boys just want the best for her, and they need to protect her when there's a bad. And it's like, oh, they get married and have a kid.
Yeah,
it's like that's not a fun conclusion.
It's rushed. It feels like a fan fiction.
Yeah.
It feels like someone was like, and then they get married and they have a kid, but for plot's sake, she grows really fast, and Jacob's in love with the kid. Like, it's such there's such bad ideas, and like I don't necessarily, back when I was real into them, I didn't hate Breaking Dawn, but now looking at it now, I think it might be the worst.
If Eclipse ended with Edward turning her, it could be a good trilogy.
Well, it would be a trilogy. A trilogy that ended in its natural place. And I understand the reasoning behind, like, Jacob falling in love or imprinting on Renesmee, their baby. It solves a problem. But it's also like, well, that's convenient, you know? Yeah. So the first book, if I can be that guy who talks about the books, I wrote I in year 11 I read it, and I did it as a reading response for English class. Yeah. So you basically had to write why it was effective. And the only thing I really remember about it, and the movie kind of touches on this, and what it nails, what the first one nails, and kind of the second one, it kind of gets more lost as they go on, is this atmosphere. Like, this really dark, but like
overcast.
Overcast, yeah, like Twilight, I guess, almost.
Because there's such a big point made in the first film about it's always raining in Forks, it's always overcast, and then they lose that.
There's a passage in the first book where it's before I think they're officially together, and they're in a car in the middle of the night. He like sneaks her out, and they're in his car, and they're parked, and it's raining, and like, I've been there. You know, I've had deep and meaningfuls.
I've picked girls up without their knowledge.
I've
sat in the rain.
Deep and meaningfuls with like close friends in a car in the rain at 4 a.m.
when they can't go anywhere.
The implication. And for some, that really touches me. Like that idea, and like there is something romantic about it. There is. Like these, at the first one, it's not, and like people are like, oh, it's still a better love story than Twilight. It's like, the first one's not too, like, it's very, it explains it, it justifies it, because these are teenagers. And when I saw these movies as a teenager, I was like, teenagers don't act like I say I loved them when I was a teenager. I acknowledge the first one was like a shitty movie when I saw it. I was like, teenagers don't act like this. But now I'm watching them as an adult, and I'm like, yeah, teenagers act like this. Like, this is actually super realistic. And if it wasn't for a couple of adult characters who also behave like teenagers, I could believe that the entire purpose of the story is to show, like, how teenagers feel about each other and how it gets out of hand and how you think you're in love with someone. And then it's a tragedy, right? Then it's like, this, like, imagine if he wasn't a vampire, she just thought he was, and he was like, yeah, I'm a vampire. Like, and that's the real life application of Twilight.
Okay, you talked about adults acting like teenagers. I know you're referring to Carlisle.
Yeah. Carlisle is Edward's quote-unquote dad, so the leader of the Cullens.
Yeah, well, okay, I think Carlisle is one of the few redeeming qualities of these movies.
Yeah, he's like the Dumbledore.
Yeah, he's like the Dumbledore. So why do you think he acts like a teenager? Because I think he's one of the most mature characters.
Because he validates everything they say. They come to him with their, like, trivial problems.
Like what?
Shit. I can't remember. Like, you acknowledge that these movies are very angsty. You acknowledge that Edward is very angsty. For a 108-year-old man.
Yeah, well, I'd be curmudgeon-y.
He's not. He's still 17. He's forever 17.
Well, that's the point. Well, the immortal children are forever that age.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah, he's going to be forever.
And so what happens when a 17-year-old has lived for 108 years and they think they're in love, you know? It's like, well, they probably are in love. I'm not trying to
I think
that, but
because he's never been in love before because he's only attracted to Bella because he can't read her thoughts and he can read everyone else's.
that's true. We haven't mentioned that yet. So Edward can read people's thoughts. He can't read Bella's thoughts, which I think is the best part of this series. I think that's such a sweet.
Well, it's interesting because it's like why. Well, and so it's not only because each vampire has a different power.
Not all of them. Some of them do.
Most of them. Who doesn't?
Carlisle, Esme, they don't have powers.
I don't think they don't have powers. I just think they never brought up.
I think in the book it says not all of them have powers.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So most of them have powers, and so like Alice can see the future. Arrow, who's the leader of the Volturi, when he touches you, he can feel every thought you've ever had. Dakota Fanning's character can just say the word pain and then just inflict a world of pain on you. And Bella's power when she's a vampire is that she's immune to every other vampire's powers.
Yeah.
And she's able to project that onto other people so she can protect other people. But for some reason she still has this power when she's a human, which I don't really get. Because does that mean she's always destined to be a vampire? Or like the chick that can shoot electricity out of her hands because she did that when she was a human?
Maybe she could do like the human equivalent of that.
Yeah.
Like maybe she was particularly prone to lightning strikes and stuff like that.
Yeah. Like, yeah, it's never really explained why. And it kind of doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Which
and
is
also, why can Alice read Bella's future?
That's what I thought as well. Because the first film ends with her being like, "Look, you're going to turn at some point because I've seen you as a vampire."
Yeah.
So, okay, I'll admit there's one plot hole in this film.
Anyway, back to Carlisle. I don't know. I just feel like he enables bad behaviour in teenagers. Whereas you look at someone like Charlie, who's Bella's dad, and he's real. Like, he's the best character because he's the most realistic.
Okay. When you say he's the best character, you mean in film, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because I actually believe that. I think Charlie Swan, and I was gonna wait, and I'll be peppered throughout now that I've revealed my true colours. Charlie Swan is the greatest film character of all time. He's played by Billy Burke, who's like a character actor. He's been in a lot of things, but man, is he good in these films? He like you said, he's the only character who's real, and these films are love stories, and it's like you're told. Like Edward and Bella and Jacob all tell you how much they love each other. You see it in Charlie.
Agreed.
He's like he loves Bella so much, but he's like a sort of like a classic like dad, like doesn't want to show too much emotion and stuff like that, and has trouble expressing it. But man, every single time he looks at Bella, every single thing he says to her, you feel this like. Yeah. This absolute love for her, and then she constantly just shits all over him. And it's like, "Oh, Dad, I'm going for Italy for 3 days, but this conversation didn't actually happen because I didn't tell you about it." She always says stuff like that. And
he feels like the only one who's aware he's in a teen love movie. Yeah. You know, like he's so, and I say that because he's a better actor than anyone else in the movies.
Yeah,
and I think like these are supposed to be emotive movies. These are supposed to make you feel something. I don't feel anything for Edward and Bella. Like, that's so... I'm so numb to feeling...
Every scene that Charlie's on, I made everyone shut up.
Yeah.
I was like, guys, can we just have a rule that if Charlie's on screen, phones down, everyone shut up and watch?
Yeah, but, like, especially the scenes where he's... like really hurt. Like in the first one, she's like, "I'm leaving," because she has to escape the vampire. So she tells Charlie that she's moving back home, and he's like, "Bella, wait, we can do more stuff together." Like there's this. You want to cry.
There's so many times when she thinks that things will be easier for Charlie if she just keeps hurting him. So she says like, he's like, "Oh, we can do more things together, like please," and then she's like, "Oh, what? Like go fishing? I don't like that, Dad." And she even says the same thing to Charlie that her mum said to him when she left him.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh my god, you just feel for him so much.
There's a part in Breaking Dawn Part 2 where the Cullens decide they're going to have to tell Charlie that Bella's dead because they can't tell him that she's a vampire. So they're like, "We're going to tell him you died and then we can leave." And they're like, and like everyone's all for it except for Jacob. And Jacob goes to talk to Charlie, and you think he's going to tell him that she's dead. He doesn't. He instead shows that he's a werewolf.
And so like you're about like things are about to get really weird. This stuff is all it's true, all of it.
Yeah.
The Jedi, they're real.
But there's a I've been thinking about this since we watched this movie, and I haven't
for 2 days.
I haven't even vocalized this yet. Like I just sort of been playing around in the movie of my mind. When Jacob goes to talk to him, he says, Charlie knows Bella's been sick. That's all he knows, but he thinks she's getting better. And he says, he goes and he's like, hey Jacob, and he's like, how's Bella? And he's like, oh, she's they're all back. And he's like, okay. And he's like, but wait, Bella? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, and Charlie does this like sort of head tilt. That's like, you can feel the hot, like the blood go to like leave his face.
Yeah, well, because he goes, I'm almost tearing up thinking about it. But like, Jacob goes, how's Bella? And he goes, and he goes like, no, she's not.
Yeah, but even before, I know that part's great too. He's like, no, she's not. Like, come on, man, don't do this to me. Even like a second before that, he does this. He kind of like tilts his head and he looks at Jacob, and it's this look of realizing something might be really wrong, but not enough evidence to support it. Like, you know, when your cat goes missing or something like that.
I've never had a pet.
Okay, when your cat goes missing, it's like there's a huge possibility that my cat's dead.
Yeah,
but that's such a ridiculous thought that I'm not going to entertain that yet.
Yeah, but when he's just like, no, she's not. Oh.
Yeah, like,
and then that's a great because, and then that's.
I think it lends credence to your theory that Charlie is the greatest film character of all time because he's a character you feel something for in a movie series where you feel nothing for anyone.
Yeah, like the whole movie series is based around you're supposed to feel all this stuff for what's going on.
Yeah,
but it's the secondary character who steals every scene he's in, and it's not even like by chewing the scenery or like, oh my god, Charlie's huge set piece, or he's so funny in this scene. It's just like, wow, this is a real person.
Everything that my teenage girlfriends, my friends that were teenage girls when I was a teenage boy
at the time
felt for Edward and Bella, I feel for Charlie. He's the only like hook I have left into these movies that makes me go like,
there's a couple of really good scenes as well. Like when he after the events of New Moon, he grounds Bella because she like leaves to Italy and he thinks that Edward's being a bad influence, and then he like tries to give her the talk. And it's like a little bit awkward.
Love that scene.
It's such a good scene because it's one of those like real, and even Kristen Stewart's quite good in it as well.
Yeah.
Because it's like
Kristen Stewart's in these movies, by the way.
Yeah, and also Robert Pattinson and Taylor Lautner as Edward and Jacob. But she like he's saying, you know, like, oh, if you're not careful, because they're going to be alone together, and then she's like, oh, Dad, don't like talk about sex, and he's like, and he basically says, you know, I'm just saying, like, whatever. She's like, I'm a virgin.
And he's like, It's such a good scene. Like, all the scenes between Bella and Charlie are great. Like, they're like the best scenes.
Billy Burke brings up Kristen Stewart as well.
I agree. Another good scene in this series, in Eclipse. This doesn't have Charlie. I'm moving on from Charlie.
We'll come back to him.
Okay. So in Eclipse, they are having a battle between the newborns and them.
And so just to clarify, so newborns are vampires that have turned within like 2 months.
Yeah, they're not newborn babies.
And so they're like the most powerful because they still have some human blood and like they
the science is airtight.
Yeah, so like vampires are strongest within the first 2 months.
So because they need Bella as bait, Edward and Bella climb up a mountain away from where the battle's happening and sleep in a tent, and Jacob's there to like kind of be the liaison between wolves.
Yeah, because they've had to team up the wolves.
The wolves are helping them, and they all sleep in the same tent together because it's really cold. And Edward's ice cold all the time, and Jacob's fire hot all the time.
Yeah.
And so she has to snuggle with Jacob while Edward watches from the other side.
Because Edward doesn't sleep as well.
Yeah. And they have a conversation while Bella's sleeping, and it's terribly acted. But the dialogue's hammy, but the spirit behind that scene is a good one.
Yeah. It's quite because it's like it shows Edward's being ever the gentleman because he was, you know, he's from the 1900s. he basically says, Jacob, like, I can see you want the best for Bella. If she chooses you, that's okay. And I'll be glad that she's happy. And if we didn't hate each other so much, I could actually see myself liking you because I respect you as a gentleman. And then Jacob goes, you will fuck you. If she chooses you, I'm gonna fuck your daughter. And it's a really nice scene.
Yeah.
It's a really, like, tender moment.
Yeah, it is. And those are the two good scenes in the series.
Well, no, I'd argue any scene Charlie's in is good.
Yep. I agree.
For those of you that didn't hear the bit that I just cut out, AJ, we paused for a moment because AJ opened up a loud plastic bag to get out a Barista Bros double espresso iced coffee made with 100% Arabica beans.
Arabica? Twilight.
And I cut out the noise of it, and then AJ said, "Yep," and then we maybe I won't cut out the noise.
Oh well, now it's going to be you can cut out this part.
Okay. So anyway, Charlie Swan.
Okay.
Is incredible. He's actually just the best. He's like,
I wish he was my dad.
He's like, I feel the same love for Charlie Swan that he feels for Bella. It's like, if you asked Charlie, why do you love Bella? If you asked anyone in this movie series, why do they love Bella? Because they all seem to. I'm not sure that any of them would be able to give you a response.
Yeah.
But you just do. You feel... I've imprinted on Charlie.
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah, I have too. Now we're the love triangle. Are you the werewolf or the vampire? We're both pretty hairy. I don't think either of us really qualify for vampire.
Yeah.
And neither of us are in peak physical condition.
Yeah. I feel like I identify most with Charlie. We're all just a big group of Charlies.
Okay, let me ask you this then, Richard. This is the question probably people have tuned in for. Are you Team Edward or Team Jacob?
Okay, so...
This was part of it. There were factions in my high school of girls who were Team Jacob and Team Edward.
Yeah.
Who did you want Bella to end up with?
I like the idea of Jacob. Jacob's a better person. Jacob is a better fit for her. But having said that, I'm probably Team Jacob. But above anything, I'm Team Robert Pattinson over Team Taylor Lautner. Which I think was what... if you're talking about... It's hard to not take in who's more of a dreamboat into this.
Yeah.
And because I'm Team Robert Pattinson. He seems like a cool guy. He's better than these movies. We haven't even spoken about how the actors feel about these movies.
I would say historically I was Team Edward because I was like, he got there first. I fell in love with the Edward Bella story before I fell in love with the Jacob Bella story. So to me, I was always Team Edward. That being said, I think Jacob and Bella could be happier together.
Yeah,
and I think Edward's a better guy. But because he's a better guy, he should leave well enough alone and see that this woman he loves is going to be happier with someone she can grow old with.
Yeah.
Can I talk about something, or have you got something to say?
No, you go.
So, here's an issue I've always had with these films, and maybe this teeters on continue the franchise a bit. I don't think it does. It's more like change the franchise. So, Breaking Dawn, as I said, it feels like a fan fiction. The book feels like a fan fiction.
And it led to a fan fiction called 50 Shades of Grey, which we'll talk about when we get there.
And so, I have a massive problem with the plot point that Bella becomes a vampire.
Okay.
Because, and don't get me wrong, there's great stuff in it, but that's because they did it.
I like how you said, don't get me wrong, as if people were just screaming.
It's the entire point of Breaking Dawn! Without Bella turning into a vampire, you don't have Renesmee, you don't have... I understand it solves some problems, they can be together forever. And so while I acknowledge that there is good stuff that comes out of it, it's still you could, there's good stuff that you can make good stuff out of a crap plot point if you have to.
Yeah.
Look at something like Lost or Star Wars, they've had to take on board the foibles that they've made and involve them in the series. However, you spend basically 3 stories explaining why it's shit being a vampire.
Yeah.
You know, like it's eternity, it's forever. You can't die. You watch everyone you love grow old and die. Like, you know, like it sounds so tragic and sad, and then it's like, now Bella's a vampire, what? And you get to see what it's like through her eyes.
Fun it is.
And I get it. I get that you tease it for 4 movies and then you get to it. I get that. But the last book, and this is me creating elements for Twilight. I'm not pulling from the source material. I'm making something up. The last book should have been about turning Edward back into a human. Like, that's way more satisfying to me.
Okay. The old Shrek kind of story.
Well, because it's like...
It's not about him becoming human, it's about him becoming an ogre.
Yeah. But it's the opposite of that. Like, because there's just something that bums me out. Like, talking about Charlie, she's going to watch him die. I mean, she would anyway, but he's going to... he's going to watch his daughter and his granddaughter stop aging and never know why, because he explicitly states in it that he doesn't want to know. He understands that there's crazy stuff going on. So Charlie doesn't really get a satisfying ending in this story.
Yeah, Charlie's last scene is they're prepping up for a big fight, and they're basically like, oh, you know, because you've got Bella's bloodline, you taste real good, so they're going to want to eat you. So it's your birthday coming up, we got you 2 tickets fishing. And he was like, you guys trying to get rid of me?
I think it's Christmas.
Because it's working.
And then, Christmas was his birthday.
They're like, yeah, you guys trying to get rid of me? Because it's working. That's his last line in the series.
Stephenie Meyer's a Mormon. Bella's never going to die. She's not going to heaven.
She's not going to her planet.
So, I don't know. What do you think? I don't necessarily think it should be Edward turns back into a human. But that seems like the most satisfying conclusion.
So, for me, Breaking Dawn, it's annoying that... Because there's a scene in Eclipse where Bella's talking with Rosalie, who's one of the...
Rosalie? Rosalie? Who says Rosalie?
That's her name. Rosalie, who's one of the Cullens. She was... Wait, how was she turned again?
She
was, like, raped, basically.
Basically,
yeah. Yeah. And so that's how she became a vampire. And then she
was raped and she turned into a vampire. Don't laugh.
Don't laugh. Yeah, like, well, she was quite a high profile person, and then her partner got real drunk one night, and basically this gang.
And then she got turned into a vampire separately. She was left out in the streets.
Yeah, she was left out in the streets to die, and then Carlisle turned her.
Yeah.
Because she'd been violently raped. And then...
Don't grin at me after you say violently raped. It's not funny, Richard.
I know. I'm just thinking about when you said don't laugh. Oh my god. She talks to Bella on the balcony and says, there's a balcony in these films, and she says, she basically explains how horrible it is to be a vampire.
Just to clarify, guys, there's a balcony.
She basically, like, explains how...
I wouldn't choose this life, she says.
Yeah, she says, like, you have a choice, don't choose it. Mm-hmm. I didn't. Like, and... she's like, well, Bella's like, well, you know what? I love Edward, so I'm gonna love him all the time. Mm. And she says, like, oh, you know, there's one thing I want above anything else, and that's Edward. And she's like, well, yeah, actually, when you're a vampire, there's one thing you'll want more, and that's blood.
And also, just to, if you didn't know, Edward doesn't want to turn her. Edward wants to just her to grow old with him, because he sees that as a better life.
Yeah, because, so that's like one of the driving points, is that he says, you don't want this.
Yeah.
And then Breaking Dawn, she gets turned, and it's like, it's fun, right?
So yeah, that's my point.
They need her struggling with the choice she's...
Yeah.
Well, even though she kind of doesn't get the choice either. He turns her
That's true. She has to change.
Yeah, because she's dead, so he changes.
But that's still, like, as soon as pen was put to paper for Breaking Dawn, I think the problem started.
Yeah.
Like, if there was going to be a 4th book and a 4th and 5th movie, I think it should have gone in a different area. Like we said before, these aren't fun stories to watch these characters go through. Like, it's knowing that Bella's going to die, in 60 years before Edward. Like, well, Edward's not going to die, assumingly. Knowing that it's like a question I had but didn't pretend it wasn't there. Like, if these movies, if the last Twilight story ended with just an establishing that they're together, and you go and you think, she's going to die someday, but not right now,
or even like, like ambiguous, like, is it enough to grow old together, or is he going to turn her in a couple of years?
Yeah, make it like philosophical. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, we don't know what Edward's like. If Edward truly loves her, he'll love her when she's 64 and she looks like an old lady.
Which they do touch on. They touch on the New Moon.
Yeah. But then Bella, that's just not good enough for her.
Yeah.
Like, hey, the rest of my life isn't long enough. Who the hell thinks like that?
Well, I was thinking about that as well. There's not an ounce of like, you don't get the impression from Bella that she wants to be immortal. You don't get the impression that she never wants to die. She just wants to be with Edward forever and wants to like be on equal footing with him. But that being said, she never talks about that. Like, living forever, that's a big deal.
It's a fucking long time.
Like, she never has an existential crisis about it. It's like, no, I want to be, and like, it's because she's a teenager and these books are
that's the thing, and
like
I'd kind of love to see a distant sequel, and I'm sure that potentially could be your continue the franchise.
It's not.
Well, okay, then we can talk about it. But I'd like to see a sequel to Twilight set 60 years later. It's like 800 years
Twilight 2049?
Yeah. I just said 20, 30, 40 years later. Seeing these characters, but I mean they would never come back, and I'll talk about that after this. But seeing the implication of everyone I know is dead, after 200 years, maybe their relationship isn't so perfect as it was when
well,
they
that's
were 17.
The thing, is that Bella is 18, nearly 19 when she gets turned.
Yeah.
Edward's 17. Now, when you were 19, Richard, were you the same as you were when you were 17?
No.
Because I wasn't.
No.
Like, do you think she's going to be truly happy for eternity, being a 19-year-old with a 17-year-old?
Well, I mean, he's always going to be older than her.
I know, but they make it very clear that he's frozen in that state.
Yeah, but then I guess I only have to bring in the fact that he's a 17-year-old from the early 1900s. So they're always going to be different. But kind of touched on it a couple of times already. Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson hate these movies. Mm-hmm. They cannot stand that they're associated with them. Mm-hmm. Go on YouTube, search Kristen Stewart Twilight, Robert Pattinson Twilight. Some of the top answers will be them talking about how much they hated working on the films.
I've never seen anything like that final about it. I've seen Edward talk about it in kind of a way you could take both ways. Edward, Robert Pattinson.
How do you mean?
Like I've seen him to be like, it's kind of a ridiculous character. Like, he looks at her like he's going to want to eat her, and she's all like, oh, that's...
Yeah, he talks about how he's called Stephanie Meyer an idiot and a psychopath. For coming up with these stories and how stupid they are. And but there's a quite good interview with him where he's like, so what did you learn? Like, which of your co-stars helped you the most? Or like made your time on Twilight unique? And in 30 seconds he's just like, whoa. And then he ends up saying face wipes. I think he's stuck in that kind of Leonardo DiCaprio post-Titanic thing where he's just seen as a pretty boy. But then I guess the difference is that Robert Pattinson is talented and seems cool. Whereas, obviously Leonardo DiCaprio is awful.
Yeah. I don't know enough about Robert Pattinson.
Speaking of things that I don't like, that everyone seems to, Renesmee is played by a girl called Mackenzie Foy, who some of you might recognise as being young Murph in Interstellar. And you know what? I'm going to say it. Breaking Dawn Part 2 is her best film.
It's just wrong.
I said it.
It's just wrong.
There, I said it.
You don't even have to like Interstellar to think that's wrong. Let's talk about Renesmee. So they thought it was a good idea to make it that they CGI'd the baby. And I guess it was to try and make it look a bit like she's magical or mystical or is something She certainly has something uncanny about her.
Yeah, so she was Mackenzie Foy played her when she's like
3 months old.
Yeah, 3 months old. So she's like 7 effectively. And 10 different actresses played her in this film, in that film. And boy howdy, do they look weird.
They don't they should
real.
have just used an actual baby. No one would have been like, look like an actual baby, not a vampire. Because you know what they look like now? They look like a PS1 video game rendering comparatively.
Yeah.
Like, it is the worst CGI I've seen in a movie that you would still regard as contemporary. Like, you know, like it's so jarring and scary, and like maybe at the time no one noticed because of maybe, you know, in 2012. Yep. No one noticed, but I noticed, and it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Speaking of 2012, when did these movies come out, and what are they rated on Rotten Tomatoes?
So I've been over when they came out. Mm-hmm. So it was 2008 to 2012, one a year. So after that, we'll finally get to the Rotten Tomatoes scores,
Okay.
which is what I was building towards. So we never ranked them, but I feel like you can't.
I honestly could. Shall I try? Shall I try tap into?
Yeah.
Okay. There's two camps of thought. Am I talking
Just hurry it up though.
the one I like the most, or the one I think is the best?
Well, the one you like the most is what we normally do.
Okay. I enjoyed watching Twilight the most this time,
Right.
but that's only because it was the first one and I wasn't sick of it. Then I would go. I'd probably just go descending order. Twilight, New Moon, Eclipse, Breaking Dawn.
Right, just because you got sick of them.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, fair enough. So the
What do you think? Would you rank them? No.
they're all the same for me. I love them all equally. So Twilight.
It'd be like picking between your Edwards and Jacobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they all have Charlie in them, so
Yeah,
they're all 5 of the greatest movies ever made. So critics score Twilight 48.
Yeah.
New Moon 28.
Yeah.
Eclipse 49. Breaking Dawn 24. And Part 2 49. So 1, 3, and 5 are all rated within 1% of each other, and then the other 2 are within 4% of each other.
I don't even
And they're
agree.
half.
Like, I would say Breaking Dawn Part 1 is better than Part 2. The only thing Part 2 has that is interesting is the fight scene, and then it's not even real.
Yeah, so like, because I thought, that's quite high. I wonder if it had actually just deviated from the book. The fight scene was real, and they won. If it'd be higher, because 49 is quite high for something that has one very identifiable huge flaw.
Yeah. So that fight scene, it sucked because it made, when I first saw it in the theatre, right? So I'd read the books by this point. Like I was well accustomed. When it's established they're going to fight, and I was like, this isn't in the book. They never get this far in the book. And Carlisle runs towards Arrow, and Arrow decapitates him. The theatre gasped.
Yeah, that was great.
And I was in the front
I had
row.
been crying.
Yeah,
I think I was in like the front row.
And I was like, of course.
Yeah.
Like, compare these. You can naturally compare Twilight to Harry Potter. They were both the same thing of their time. Like, Twilight was after Harry Potter. Obviously the movies, similar trajectories as well. Harry Potter's better, don't get me wrong, but, Twilight's still there. And think about all the characters that die in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Think about how that makes you feel. Think about how invested that made you. And when I saw Carlisle die, I was like, yeah, that's what should have happened in the book. No one dies in the book.
Yeah.
Literally, no one. Maggie Grace's character, I think, dies, but that's it. Who gives a shit about her? Like no one dies.
Yeah.
No one dies. And so Carlisle dies. I think Jasper dies. Who else? A couple of the werewolves die in this fight scene.
Jane dies.
Volturi. Yeah, and all the Volturi get killed, and it's like
not all of them, but Jane and once Arrow dies, he's like, oh, maybe I won't fight.
And to reiterate, none of these characters actually die.
Yeah.
It's then revealed that it's all a dream. But like, yeah, I would feel so much more for that movie if those characters actually died. Yeah. And it's all Bella's fault. Like that's I think that's why no one dies, is because Stephanie Meyer wouldn't have been able to shake this like it's kind of all Bella's fault that these characters are dying.
Yeah, I mean, it's that whole thing of why does everyone love Bella so much? Anyway, can we just quickly check the time? Time of day.
2:00.
Alright, okay, cool. So we'll move on to continue the franchise, if you don't mind. Unless you have anything else. We can talk about it afterwards as well. This doesn't mean it's the end, AJ.
Continuing the franchise, what's interesting about Twilight is that there actually is a couple book so continuations.
The Short Second Life of Bree Tanner,
which I've read.
And so I don't even know who Bree Tanner is.
So
she's in the Breaking Dawn Part 2 ends with a full credit sequence for the entire franchise. So it comes up with every main actor who's appeared, and it says so-and-so as so-and-so. And it has someone as Bree Tanner, and I was like, I don't remember her at all. But
I can tell you who she is.
But what's interesting about... I'll let you in just a moment. What's interesting is that it goes in like... so the first name you see, the first person you see is the other like half vampire, who they bring in for like 2 seconds, and they're like, how old are you? Oh, I'm a million, and I'm half vampire.
Half human.
And then, so he's the least important person. It goes from the last names you see in like reverse order. So the last name you see is Kristen Stewart as Bella, obviously. Then before that is Robert Pattinson as Edward Cullen, and then before that is Taylor Lautner as Jacob Black. Before that is Billy Burke as Charlie Swan. Yeah. He's the 4th most important person in the movies.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
He's the beast.
Bree Tanner is a newborn in Eclipse, and she's the one that they try to protect that the Volturi kill at the end. The Volturi turn up and they're like, you've killed all these newborns, what about this one over here? And they're like, we're going to adopt her. And then they kill her anyway. Do you remember it? Does this ring a bell? She's like the audience surrogate newborn. It follows her throughout the film. Right. And there's a book written about her, and it's a novella. It's very short. But like, it's actually just real stupid. Like, why include her? There's no lasting consequences. The only thing I can think is that she's there to illustrate that not even Carlisle can stand up to the Volturi. That's the only, like...
Right, yeah.
Because he's like, we're going to protect her, and they're like, no, we're going to kill her. She's a newborn. And then Carlisle basically stands aside and lets them kill her. Which is kind of a bummer. But, like, I would have been more interested to see a new character join the pack.
Right.
I guess, the coven. And it's just real pointless. The book is from her perspective, and it's basically... It tells the story of her life from being turned into a vampire. What?
I was just thinking of it before when I was laughing inappropriately.
Okay. It follows her short second life. So her turning into a vampire to her death. And I've read it once years ago. And from what I remember, there's a little romance story in there. But it's just sad. And like, I'm not against sad stories, but you don't have to have happy endings. In no story do you have to have a happy ending, but in every story you have to have closure. Like, that's the rule.
Right.
You can't, like, Titanic has a sad ending, but it's closure. It's got closure.
The Mist.
Yeah, even that is closure. Like, I don't like it, but...
Oh, it's great. It's not a good movie.
There's just no closure to an innocent character getting killed. Like, it's just sadness. It's not...
Yeah. So...
Anyway, that's Short Second Life.
There's another one, which was a 10th anniversary. It's called Life and Death, Twilight Reimagined. And it's about Beaufort Swan, who moves back into town and falls in love, or like Beaufort Swan, who moves into town, into Forks, and falls in love with Edith Cullen. Spelled Edythe.
So basically it's like what one of us would submit to continue the franchise as a joke.
Yeah.
This is such a bad idea.
This is Stephanie Meyer's attempt to be like, no, it's not about
gender roles,
and it's not about a girl. Yeah, no, it's stupid. It's stupid as hell. And that ends with the fight that we sort of briefly touched on at the end of the first Twilight. That turns Bella, and they say, "Hey, Charlie, she died. We're gonna go."
Because fuck Charlie. Who cares about that character?
I know you're joking.
No, I know. I'm with you there. Though. It's such an unsatisfying way to close out the story. I haven't read it, but I do take a strong moral standpoint against rewriting your own story with the genders switch.
Yeah.
Like, that's so stupid.
Yeah.
Talk about having no ideas left.
Yeah. So, well, there was another idea she had at one point for a book called Midnight Sun, which is Twilight retold from Edward's perspective, which is not a bad idea.
No.
It's an interesting experiment.
Yeah.
Whereas Life and Death is just retarded. But, sorry, can I say that?
No.
Okay. It's just stupid. And, yeah, so Midnight Sun, a few chapters got leaked, and then Stephen Meyer just said, it's not mine anymore, I don't feel... Maybe I'll finish it one day, but probably not. And so there's a few chapters you can read online. They were published in... There was like a re-release of Twilight, and they published the few chapters of Midnight Sun, and like as a forward or an afterward or whatever. But the book's probably never going to be finished unless the off chance that people stop caring about Stephanie Meyer and she needs to J.K. Rowling herself back into the limelight.
I've read Midnight Sun, what there is of it,
Yeah.
and I remember I read it again when I was into the book, so I can't say for sure now. But I remember thinking it was awesome. I remember going, "Yep, this is what the first one should have been."
Yeah, and it's in Midnight Sun as well. It reveals that so Edward can't read Bella's thoughts, but
Edward can't read.
And
I wish I could read.
And AJ just referencing a racist meme, but he can't really read Charlie's thoughts. He can sense that he feels love for Bella, and he can sense there's a fear about Edward or whatever. But then he can't actually read what he's thinking.
Yeah.
What is interesting. It's interesting, and so Bella just got that trait but stronger. I'll let you go first for continue the franchise.
I just want to see these movies remade.
Yeah.
Like, of all the things I could want, I want more. Like,
would you like to see someone else taking the general idea of the book?
Yeah. So I'm going to be misquoting someone here. And I don't even know for sure. I think it was Joss Whedon. I think I read a quote from Joss Whedon once that basically put forward this idea that this is real wanky, this is real pretentious, so I'm sorry.
It's Joss Whedon, what do you expect?
He basically put forward this concept that storytelling, you don't own the story, that you go into a trance-like state when you're really into writing, and it's almost like you're opening up this bag of story and you are the chosen vessel to put that to paper, right? So, in other words, I interpret that as meaning is every story ever exists in this vacuum universe, and different people become the vessel to put that story,
right, okay.
Which has no there's no philosophical standing or anything, but it's an interesting idea, and that's how I feel like Twilight was this perfect story that was given to a terrible vessel.
Yeah,
because I've said before, a vampire, not even a vampire, someone who can read everyone's mind except for this one girl and he's in love with her. Oh, that's so good. That hooks me right there, Yeah. That's such a good idea. And as I said, there's so much good stuff in here. There's atmosphere, there's feeling, there's emotion. And so there's a part in Breaking Dawn part 1, right at the end, where Bella is giving birth and she's dying as she gives birth. And so Edward has to bite the baby out of her.
Yeah.
He has to tear open her stomach with his mouth.
Which is metal as fuck.
It's so metal, and it doesn't fit in a powder puff vampire movie. It fits in something like Let the Right One In.
Yeah.
Something like that. So I want to see a more vampiric Let the Right One In Twilight, where it's less about making you feel good and more about making you feel.
Yeah.
So I was thinking the chick who plays Nancy from Stranger Things would be a good Bella because she's got likability to her, whereas Kristen Stewart, at least in these movies,
she's a babe.
is real vacant, I guess.
Yeah.
Give her some kind of semblance of a personality instead of being a blank slate that teenage girls across America could put themselves into.
Yeah. Kristen Stewart is a good actress.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's interesting what you said. I'm just stalling now to try and remember. It's almost there. This. Not many people will be happy about this, but hey, it's not my fault. If you go into the Guinness Book of Records, look at the top grossing films of all time in different genres. Do you know what the top grossing horror film is?
What?
Twilight.
Nothing about it is scary.
Yeah. It's also. I want to say it's the highest grossing film with vampires in it, but I feel like that could be.
Daybreakers.
No, Hotel Transylvania now. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I was like, "What the hell?" When I read that one day. What would you call? Would you just call it Twilight?
Yeah, just Twilight.
Who would you get to write, direct, star? Who's your perfect?
Maybe someone like David Fincher to direct it.
Yeah,
could be cool.
He's fucking
like someone I don't know.
Days, isn't he?
Let the right one in, or the guy who did Birdman and Revenant,
Alejandro Inarritu,
or the guy who did Children of Men and Gravity and
Alfonso Cuarón.
Yeah, someone like that who's got like this real dark style. Like, because Twilight tries to be dark, but then it's like so poppy. I don't know. As I said, there's a good story in there, and it's yet to be realised on any medium.
Right. All right. Thanks, AJ.
Mm-hmm.
My continue the franchise is called Forks, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the story of a young man who falls in love with his high school sweetheart. And so obviously there's that kind of, when you fall in love too young, what happens? It's not sustainable.
Unless you're a vampire.
And let me finish. And then they end up having a daughter together, but they split up, and his high school sweetheart moves to the other side of the country with their daughter. So now this man, Charlie Swan, is living a lonely existence in a shithole town called Forks in Washington. And he's the chief of police. And he doesn't really have anyone, but he's got all this love in his heart. And there's a series of murders that start to happen. And he feels like his life is beginning to have purpose again, but obviously he feels horrible about it because it's like, I have something to do, but people are dying. And then, right when these are starting as well, his daughter decides she's going to move over, and he's like, finally, I've got a reason to love again.
Mm-hmm.
And then she gets there, and he's trying his hardest to connect with her, but she's just this angsty teen. And then she ends up falling in love with this guy, Edward.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't. Obviously he's like a bit iffy about his daughter having a new boyfriend. But he's still investigating these murders. And then one night, his daughter, gets into a pretty serious accident. She goes to hospital. And she's taken care of by Dr. Cullen. And so, all this while, and I forgot to mention as well, so he grew up with his best friend Billy. They've been best friends for their entire lives.
Mm-hmm.
And Billy was paralysed from the waist down, at some point during their growing up. Now,
Billy is Jacob's dad, by the way.
Yeah. And so, imagine the twist that it would be if this fucking lovable dude, he finds out that these murders are being committed by the supernatural, and that it's the town doctor who took care of his sick daughter, who's also related to this dude that his daughter's seeing,
mm-hmm.
and on top of that, his best friend for his entire life is the leader of a cult of werewolves. That's a great story.
That's good, man. That's the best continue the franchise I think you've ever brought forward. It's compelling.
And because this could actually, I think it'll probably make a good TV series. Because it's probably too much for one film, but then it's probably not enough for multiple films. So you kind of have to mush up a lot of what happens across all of the movies. But Chief of Police, it's like do like a 10-episode, one case, not a procedural kind of thing,
mm-hmm.
of this guy just imagine and that's the thing is that, I know what you are. You're a vampire. Yep, I am. Cool. I can look. Hold on back. I can run really fast. And then
why did you say that?
That's like in the first film. And then,
He just sort of said it like removed like the seventh segment.
Like because we've talked about this before, like in Doctor Strange, it was like when he problems with it that he comes through like a different dimension, and Rachel McAdams is like, "Oh, you're a wizard now? Okay."
Yeah. Sure.
And it's like, no, the vampires are real.
If I found out anything supernatural was like concrete and real, like I would be thinking about it for months.
Yeah. Like the rest of your life. And so imagine like it's just and like this isn't a continue the franchise even, this is a replace the franchise.
Yeah.
So like you have this compelling like Broadchurch, the killing, whatever kind of style drama, and then in the last few episodes, the last half of it, it's suddenly supernatural.
Yeah.
And then boom. But it's one of those things that's hinted at. It would be hinted at enough that the story's still well told. And so you've got imagine finding out that vampires are real. Imagine existing in a world with all this vampire fiction. Because with zombie movies, it's often...
I've never heard of zombies.
It's a rule in zombie movies that it exists in a world that's never had zombie fiction.
Yeah.
Imagine a world that has vampire fiction, has werewolf fiction, has all these ancient tales, and then, boom, they're real, they're trying to bone your daughter.
Mm.
That's incredible. I would love
to see. The most Freudian fear there is.
And it stars Billy Burke as Charlie Swan. Like, I haven't felt this since we did SpongeBob, when I was like, I actually really want this to exist.
Yeah, man, I agree. It's a good idea.
Like, and because we have Twilight, you can't do this.
Yeah.
Because, part of it would be the twist. I mean, I'm sure there's a way to do it. I mean, you put Billy Burke as Charlie Swan in anything, and it's going to be the best TV show ever made. But, you just... I'm actually really upset.
He was in a TV show called Revolution that did not do very well.
Well, I'm sure he was great in it. But,
no, that's a good idea, man. I like it.
I'm genuinely crushed that I'm never going to get this series.
But
I'm still holding out. I feel like my SpongeBob Continue the franchise could actually happen.
Is there... has Stephenie Meyer said anything about what's next for Twilight?
I don't think so. I think that she's closed the book on it as far as I can tell. Okay. She did her 10-year anniversary, and that's kind of that. Like the 10-year anniversary, Life and Death is the latest update, basically.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect to see anything more with Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart.
Life and Death is a very lackluster title compared to the other books in the series. Like even Midnight Sun. I guess the short second life of Britannia is kind of out of the bubble as well. But
yeah.
But we do talk about titles a lot.
We do talk about titles a lot on this podcast. I like the titles of these. I've always thought they were quite interesting.
The
Twilight, New Moon, Eclipse, Breaking Dawn.
The books have dope title bombs, if I may kind of try and recount them for you. So a title bomb, for those who don't know, is when they say the title of the movie or the story in the story. Personally, this is my personal preference. I like it when it's said once, when it's a concept and not like a thing. So like Jurassic Park doesn't count for me because Jurassic Park's the name of the thing. Yeah. Whereas something like Scrubs, where in the first episode of Scrubs he says, "Do you not realise you are nothing but a large pair of scrubs to me?" It's like, cool, it's a concept.
Yeah.
It's a metaphor. Twilight, I think they do say it a couple times in it. I think they say it when they're in the car and they're like, "Oh, it's Twilight. This is the Twilight." Oh, here we go. I just remember this now. Twilight is the one time that vampires can walk around in the day because they don't sparkle. Because vampires sparkle in the series.
I can't believe we haven't. It's been over an hour and we haven't mentioned that.
But at the end of the book, when she's like, "I want you to change me, I want you to turn me into a vampire," he says something like, "You want this to be the twilight of your life." And what that means is Twilight is what is the end of something and the start of something else.
Yeah.
New moon.
It's beautiful, but it's fleeting.
Yeah. New moon is a new moon is when there's no moon.
Yeah.
That's not common knowledge, I don't think. Well, it's the opposite of a full moon. So you basically can't see the moon in the sky because it's covered up. And after Edward breaks up with her, she gets lost in the forest and she mentions that it's a new moon and that she can't see anything. Right. It's complete darkness. And obviously there's a metaphor there that it's also about werewolves, and moons and werewolves go hand in hand.
And also I felt the darkness that Edward's gone out of the life.
Yeah. Eclipse is a real good one. Eclipse is when she talks to Jacob right at the end. You remember that? So Jacob's like been bitten or something by a vampire and he's like recuperating and she goes and talks to him and he basically says like, "I still love you no matter what." and she says to him, you know, I always felt like you were this sun in my life, not SON, SUN. Like, you were the sun in my life because you were so warm. You were so, like, you know, you were this warm presence in my life. It's beautiful. And then he goes, well, I can't deal with an eclipse. Which is nice, isn't it? It's nice. And I don't think they say Breaking Dawn and Breaking Dawn. But then in Midnight Sun, there's a passage where Edward is... I'm sorry if this isn't interesting. It just occurred to me. There's a part where Edward is watching Bella sleep like a maniac, like a serial killer. And he said, so long my life has been midnight, and now it's like there's a sun in the middle of my midnight.
Right.
So
it's an implied title.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is weird that he watches her sleep, eh?
If you were in Life and Death, and you were in love with a vampire, and she was like completely powerful over you in every way, would you be into that?
Well, I guess the thing is that because
you're a very dominant person, so I don't know if you would be into it.
Well,
whenever we've had sex, Richard,
I feel like I don't know. You have to be there because the vampires are supposed to be like unspeakably beautiful, like, and to have imagine like the hottest person you've ever seen, but like tenfold, and you wake up and she's standing at the end of your bed.
In Twilight,
I feel like you can't be too weirded out.
In Twilight, when he reveals to her all his powers, he's like, "As if you could outrun me," and he like speeds through the forest. He's like, "As if you could best me in a fight," and he like rips a tree trunk. Imagine if he just wasn't a vampire; he's just this angsty kid. He's like, "As if you could outrun me," and he like does this little jog to the edge. She's like, "Oh my god, she's so fast," and he's like, "As if you could best me in a fight," and he like tears this branch off a tree, but like it takes him a while. And she's like, "Oh my god, she's so strong."
Yeah. That'd be great. That scene is ripe for parody.
That's my continue the franchise. Twilight, but he's not a vampire.
That's a good idea. Okay, so what did you think of my title, Forks Washington? That was the best
I mean, it doesn't fit the...
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I was like, because I want to replace the franchise. And I was like, what would be a cool title?
It's cool because towns are... I like how Brokeback Mountain is like... It's called that because Brokeback Mountain is this nexus point of like this relationship.
Yeah.
And this, I don't know why Brokeback Mountain's the one example I could think of, but I don't know. I like emotion being tied to a location.
Like Broadchurch is one. That's kind of like,
cool.
but then Forks is kind of a dumb title just by itself because it's like it doesn't sound like a town.
That was actually the original title for Twilight.
Yeah. But Forks Washington, I feel like is like gives it. It's like Paris, Texas.
Yeah.
All right, let's franchise with it.
Okay,
so this is a segment where we pick our next franchise at random. Do we want to talk about next episode at all?
I'll just quickly mention that we've got a guest coming on next episode, and he's a very busy man. So because of
very busy boy.
Because of that, he said he can do it, but he can only do movies that are franchises that are 2 episodes long. So I've got our list open here. I'm going to Control F and write open bracket 2, close bracket, and we have 107 options. Oh, you don't have your phone. We can't do the random number.
Just Google random number 1 and 107.
Okay, random number.
So now this is just called Paddock for time.
1 and 107, which is coincidentally Edward's age.
4 random numbers between 1 and 107. Yeah, no, is he 107?
No, he's 100.
So what? At least 100.
Is that the...
So it says generate 4, so change that to generate 1.
1.
Go.
37. Okay, so now I'm going to go to our franchise list. We're at 1.
I just click the little thing. We don't need to hear you do this. 37. Oh, God, he's doing it, isn't he? 34, 36, 37.
Disney's Lady and the Tramp. I knew it was going to be a Disney one. Do you know how many Disney sequels there are?
Yeah. Alright.
Alright. I was hoping we'd get the Ewok movies, but
yeah,
I'll message our guest about Lady and the Tramp.
Yeah.
So tune in next fortnight. Lady and the Tramp.
Disney's The Lady and the Tramp.
And go watch Twilight. Tell us why you.
All right, and I've got a bounce. I've got a plane to catch.
Oh. Cool.
So I bid you adieu.
If you like this podcast, please rate and review it on iTunes. You can do that by searching Cult Popture Podcast and going to the reviews tab. You can also find us on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, all under Cult Popture. You can email us at cultpopturemedia@gmail.com. And tell your friends about this podcast. Share it around. Let people know it exists. Because
Because they don't know. Because 40 listens per episode isn't quite cutting my mustard.
We've got something special coming up on the Cult Culture soon, don't we?
Oh yeah, a few things. Not ready to announce anything, but
Well, just watch this space. Not this space, but watch Facebook, I guess.
yeah, man. Yeah. So thank you very much for listening. Yeah. See you guys next time.
And are you Team Edward or Team Jacob? Sound off in the comments below. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, and now I normally start singing the theme song.